This is the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. Welcome to the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. It's so great that you're joining us. It's the week of May 10th to 16th. Joining us today, we've got the most community-minded person I know, the service pastor for the 9 a.m. and the 11 a.m. service, Mark Dick.
Hello, hello, friends.
We've got the Wonder Woman extraordinaire, Glenda Postman.
Good morning, friends.
And filling in for Luke Watson, we've got the amazing Monica Loewen.
Good morning. The amazing. That's quite the introduction.
Yeah,
I
we
like
got
it.
the amazing. She's our special guest today. So great to have you. I'm Levi. I'm the host of this podcast, and it's time to get to our fun morning question. So, guys, today's fun morning question. What personality trait has got you in the most trouble?
Oh man, Mark Dick, you got to go first on this one.
Oh, why me?
I
I'm
feel like there
mostly
may
in
be
trouble.
a few.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't even know. Narrow this down. I would say, no. How about you go first, Glenda? Give me a second to think about this.
Okay. Probably shocking to many of you. Actually, probably not shocking to anybody. Probably my mouth gets me in the most trouble.
Okay.
Be a little bit impulsive and maybe a little bit too free speaking at times. I think that's really actually changed a little bit as I've gotten older, thankfully. But I think sometimes I can be like a really critical thinker. And so I just don't want that to turn to a critical spirit. So I think I'm a little bit sensitive to that. And also I'm an 8. I'm a Enneagram 7 with a wing 8. And a wing 8 is a really like don't boss me personality. And so every once in a while I get a little bit of like, don't boss me. You can't boss me. You can't tell me what to do. That's getting a little better in life too as I get older. But it's run strong for much of my life. I've always wanted to be a different kind of person than I am. Eventually you get old and you just embrace it. So.
Wow.
Stuff.
I'm kind of stuck on the you're getting old part, but we can move on. We can cover that in another podcast.
Sure, love to.
I don't know about all the Enneagram stuff. I think probably I have a feeling as I look at Monica and Levi, they probably are going to tell you what number they are too. I'll probably go with my personality trait that has got me personally in the most trouble would be that I am like a bit impulsive. So I would have been the classic, if my parents would have known about Ritalin, I would have been on Ritalin as a child. They didn't, so then I wasn't, so then I got in trouble because I was hyper and I was distracted. As I get older, I'm kind of not quite as old as Glenda, but I'm getting older. I'm learned to control this ADD without medication. I control it with coffee. It's good.
Fair enough. Sounds like a good solution.
Do you think you're still impulsive?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say, I love Jesus too much or something. I was going to say that's
Yeah.
not a...
I probably should have gone that direction.
That's like what you do at an interview.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm such a trouble
Encourage
person. I
be
love
something
Jesus
that is-
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets me so
Monica,
much.
what are you going to say?
My trait that gets me in trouble, I am ridiculously sarcastic, which is very funny, but it doesn't translate super well via text or email. So my best sarcastic story was right after Jeff Hath started at church. I was texting him about something. We were going to try and set up a meeting. And he says, yeah, I've got family coming. I'm like, ugh, family, such a hassle. And he didn't answer. For 3 days, he didn't answer. And I didn't know him at all.
Like
And I'm
this
like,
woman.
oh my word. So I
She's-
sent this email. I'm like, I'm really sorry. And I didn't mean to offend you. He's like, oh, no. I just got busy. I'm like, no sarcasm by text. It doesn't work.
Oh, man.
How about you, Levi?
Okay, so Enneagram, I'm a 3 through and through. So times of high stress, I am a do-it-all myself kind of person. I'm a more, I don't know, I kind of go into that whole 8 side of things where I'm in your face and it's my way or the highway. because I can do it the best and no one else can do it the best.
Have you met Monica?
Yeah, both me and Monica are threes, so we both do it the
Yes.
best. And so
Yes.
that gets me in trouble, similar to what Glenn is saying with my speech. Often if I'm in groups, I'm a group person. Like I love working on teams and stuff, but often the way that I come across is that my idea is the better idea. And so people think that I'm kind of all about myself. And that's totally not true. It's just how I come across. So it gets me in trouble. This gets me in trouble every once in a while. But
Fair enough.
I love people. I really do.
You're
Yeah.
a joy to work with, Levi.
Sometimes. It's okay. People can say it. Sometimes I'm a joy to work with. Yeah.
Sometimes somebody just has to be in charge and just get stuff done and just put that idea out there and just run with it.
That is true too.
Also a thing.
But always with fun.
Yeah.
That's
Me
why we
and
need
Mark are
you,
probably
the
the
7.
opposite Enneagram sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're the fun people.
Yeah.
I'm okay
I don't
with
know
that.
what Mark
Who
is,
don't like
but
to be bossed.
I'd say he's probably pretty similar to Glenda. You 7s.
I think
And
I've
Luke is
done
also
this
an Enneagram 7,
test.
which is very interesting.
We have a lot of people in our
Oh,
office that are
7s.
7s
I've done it.
actually. Yeah. You know, church, from things that I've looked into, a lot of church ministry usually is 3s. Like there's a lot of staff that are 3s, but for us, we've got 7s and 9s, like no other in our church. So
Interesting.
yeah, it is interesting when you get into,
If people don't care about Enneagram, they're so bored at this point.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Or they're looking it up.
Let's move
Yeah.
along, folks.
It's time to get to the message. All right, this week, Jeff Heth was the person who was preaching. He preached on I am the resurrection and the life. That was our statement, our I am statement from John. We looked at the story from Lazarus, Lazarus being raised from the dead. Crazy. And so Jeff asked, what would it take for you to believe? And he had us write down our responses to where we are in our faith. Have you gone through seasons of faith? Have you battled unbelief? And so what are you guys thinking about that? What would it take you to believe? Or have you guys battled times of unbelief in your life?
I think that was an interesting thing to get us to pause and write down, just because we don't always understand the state of our hearts. So I think it was good just to pause and a little bit take some inventory of really, where am I? Where am I in this? Because it's a relationship, so it's living and breathing, and it's shifting all the time. So we have times of intimacy and more distance, and so I think that's normal, part of relationships. But it was interesting to kind of sit for a minute and pause. What is the status of things?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good way even to look at it, is that piece of its relationship, right? And just with every relationship that we have, there's certain times when things are really good, and sometimes it's more distant. So I think as I reflected on that too, it just struck me again of the gift of, when I look at my walk with God, I can't recall a season of unbelief. And I just take that as a straight gift from God. But definitely those seasons of, there's times where I feel really close to God, and other times that I am believing and trusting that he's there, even though I can't really feel him as much.
Yeah, I would say similar. I couldn't think of a specific time where I would have said that I would have said that I don't believe in God, but I would guess probably, and maybe that's because early on in life, I sort of experienced some times where I remember a specific time where a friend of mine passed away. I experienced death early in my life, and then my cousin passed away. So there was times of death early in life that I remember being surrounded by people that depended on God, and that sort of showed that even in those times God can be there. So I think for myself, I would put myself in the similar to what Monica said category, right? I'm not sure that I ever had a time of unbelief, but these experiences early in life shaped me and reminded me that through good, I had people that obviously lived lives of dependence on God that showed me his presence then, but also through the difficult. And so I think there was like, foundationally, there was some things that happened early in life that helped me to understand that he's there, his presence is there. And I'm not sure I ever had a time when I said, when I chose not to have him as a part of my life. And then I can also say probably that I never had the time when I thought that he wasn't present in my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, that's a gift.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like my faith has been more rocky than your guys's. I don't know. I feel like that step from high school into adulthood, that first year, I really was, I don't know, questioning what I believed at that point, because I grew up in a Christian home. I had stuff that happened, bad stuff that happened to me throughout my childhood that made me kind of question my faith, but really trying to make it my own. Like, do I actually believe this? And it took probably almost a whole year, that first year out of high school, to figure out if I actually believed. And I would say that there was definitely seasons where I was in that going, no, I don't think this is true. I don't feel God in my life. And I know since then, and I mean, even in Bible college, you get down the theological wormholes of reading books and all this stuff, and you start to really kind of start panicking. Wait, do I actually believe this? And so I'd say there was seasons of unbelief, but there's still faith there. And for me, I allowed people to gather around me that would encourage me in those seasons. So there was still faith, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I think,
and it's good to know too that like really Thomas still got to be a follower, even though he asked those questions. So I think absolutely, I have totally had those questions before too. So where I am asking of God, what if I'm wrong? Like, what if this is all for naught? Or what if this, like, and I feel like every once in a while, I just have to count the cost. It reminds me of being like in a boat, and sometimes like you're in the sailboat and the sail's up and it's flapping in the breeze and you're whipping across the water. And other times, like you're sitting there licking your finger, putting in the air, being like, is there a drop of wind? Am I going to have to paddle this thing the whole way? Because this is going to get really exhausting. And there's times where you're just dead in the water. Like it's just literally stuck and you are not going anywhere, and you're paddling your arms on the side to try to get anywhere. And there's times where you're like, actually, I'm just considering bailing out of this thing right now. So I think that there's like, it just reminds me of being in a boat. I think that all of those seasons are part of our lives, or has been part of my life.
Yeah, that's a fantastic analogy, actually.
I think that
not bad, Glenda. Way to come up with that one.
Glenda's always got the good analogies.
Way to go.
I've been an analogy girl.
Yeah, if there's these times when we start to maybe doubt or ask God, if only, like if only I had this, or if only this happened in my life, then I will follow you more, or like, you know what I mean? Like there's these statements that we make. Have you guys ever felt that or asked God for something, like if only this happened?
Well, that's in the passage, right? Like Martha says, I think it's Martha who says, if only Jesus had been there. So I think absolutely there's times where if you've prayed a prayer, like there's one prayer that I've prayed just for years and years, and yet I haven't seen God answer that prayer. So I think I for sure have had some of those if onlys where your heart takes a little bit of a beating.
And I think, that along with Martha, if only you had been here, then this wouldn't have happened. I mean, it was that statement of faith that she acknowledged Jesus could have healed him from his sickness, right? So I think when I think of those if onlys, my gut reaction is, oh, but that's blaming God. And I can't go there. That piece of, well, if only you'd done this, God, this would have been easier. So I hesitate to go there. But when you really have those deep conversations with God and say, okay, but God, if this hadn't gone that way, these people wouldn't have been hurt. Then this wouldn't have happened. And really, God, you could have been really glorified through this. And then to stop and then take it one step further and say, okay, but God, how were you glorified in this? What did I learn? So I find those if onlys make me stop and look at the bigger picture of it.
It's interesting. on Sunday after the service in our Zoom lobbies. We talked about this actually because somebody said, is her comment, is when we say if only, is it like a guilt thing that we try to guilt trip God into doing something? One. And then the other sort of flip side of it was, is actually us saying, if only God, is that actually part of, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but a lament piece, like, is it actually a part of us going through grief? Like, is asking those questions, is processing through, if only, the other things, asking God, if this wouldn't have happened, if you would have showed up in this way, could things have been different? Can we imagine the other things? And then to understand that God is there anyways. In all of those, the question that Martha asked actually is maybe a totally fair question, and it allows us to like put it before God to say, this is, what about this, and to see his like bigger picture in it. So it was interesting because it was like the two extremes in this discussion that we had on Sunday afternoon.
Well, and really that happens again in the passage, because Jesus's love is questioned 3 times in that passage. Mary asks him, Martha asks him, and then the mourners ask him. So 3 times they're actually questioning, like, but do you love him? Like, and they're trying to like hook him in with that. And I was thinking, like, I actually demand that God love me in my way too. I demand that all the time. I'm like, but this is how. So do I want him to spare me from suffering, and that's how I want him to love. It's really kind of a sneaky health and wealth prophecy, like idea, belief, that the best way we think for God to show up for us is by doing what I ask of him.
Glenda, you mentioned
the guilt manipulation. That's what I mean. That's what somebody said. Go ahead.
Yeah, Glenda, you mentioned that like the suffering piece. Have you found times in your life where your heart has taken a beating, or what are some trials that you've faced?
Oh, for sure. I mean, have we not faced trials where we're asking things of God? I mean, I think we just do all the time. I mean, we've walked through lots of seasons, especially the last 5 years, of like really hard conversations and things, watching parents die, having cancer, asking for things for our kids, and like, it just, for sure, there's just times where you ask God, like, because the path for him to display his glory to me doesn't seem like, I actually can accuse him of being like narcissistic or something, because I think, but in my way, God, my way and my time, and I forget that really his purposes are like manifesting. What verses? I was thinking about this verse. Oh, I think it's in John 14. He talks about, this is the way he manifests himself to us. So this is how he loves us, by revealing himself to us. John 14, somewhere in John 14. So I'm like, that's interesting, because like, I think that he loves me by doing other things than what he has said. And then I say to him, but God, you, like, I try to say, but you said, and really, I'm really kind of off base in what he said about suffering. Maybe we just have a bad theology of suffering. I don't know. Monica, you've walked through some stuff.
Yeah, definitely walked through some stuff. And then to look back and say, okay, God, if only. And actually, it was one of those things that was poignant for me yesterday in Mother's Day. Mother's Day makes me think back, having walked through divorce and the impact that has had on my life and on my kids. Yeah, there's still stuff that's hard. And I think, okay, but God, if only we could have saved that. If only that marriage could have been saved. These things wouldn't have happened. And so when I look back, I think, yeah, God, I had a great idea. And this was going to be a great plan. And if you would have just kind of walked along with me, but it comes back to that piece of blaming. And I'm like, whoa, no, because God is perfect and his plan is perfect. I can't go there. And it just makes you stop and wrestle. And then when you do come out the other side, though, and I can look back and think, if only, whether that was divorce or with my daughter's illness, but I can look back now, and I can look now and say, wow, God, you were there through all of it. And this is what we have now. So I think it's that whole journey. You got to do the whole thing. You got to walk through the hard, you got to walk through the if only, but look what you did, God. And look what we got now.
Yeah, we think that we know the way to receive his grace, but
Mhm.
really what it often excludes is me depending on him or being
Yeah.
inconvenienced or for sure not to experience pain. So that is the best way for me to receive his grace, when really that is when I've received his grace sometimes the most. So we forget that what he's trying to give us is himself.
Well, and we're told, right? His strength is in our weakness. And sometimes we need to be really, really weak to realize that, wow, okay, yes, I need to rely, I need to stop. I can't do this. We go back to the Enneagram and the three, I can do all the things and I can do them really, really well. And my idea is a great one. And sometimes I feel like God just has to take me out right at the knees and say, no, I've got this. And now I'm not quite as old as Glenda, but getting older, and the lessons keep getting bigger. And I think, okay, at some point in time, I'm going to learn this. And God keeps saying, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again because I'm still in charge. And I love you enough that I am going to take you out at the knees and show you again my grace and my strength and my mercy.
I think it's an interesting, all of these conversations are interesting because I think that's actually how, like, our sermon series, even the IMs, right? It's seemingly it's been pushing me in my thinking to realizing that actually the IMs are a good reminder that God is enough, that I actually am not enough, that, you know, the I am all of the things, the light, the shepherd, the vine and the branches, which we haven't covered this weekend, the resurrection and the life, the things that actually, when you think about them and how they, in my own life, when I think about them, I'll stay personal, but in my own life, the manifestation of those things in my life actually show me how God is enough. So the reality is we from young on are like pushed to be enough. You can figure it out, you know, and I would say it's even more so today, that on your own you can do all the things, you can try hard enough. You know, I've watched my son in athletics, right? You, even if you know, physically don't have all the things, you can like mentally think yourself or will yourself to be the best and all those sort of things, where that's actually like that's actually a lie. That's a lie that we're convinced of, and that we need to, like, in many situations, be broken of, that we actually have enough strength, that we actually have enough wisdom, that we actually have enough whatever inside of us to be our own life. Where I think even this weekend, with a reminder that actually we don't, without death is final and is the end if we don't know Jesus as the resurrection and the life. It's done. It actually wins, but we know that because of him it doesn't win. We actually have the next, I don't know, I think this is like a real, this sermon series has been real for me in that way.
It's interesting because really it's a double promise, right? It's saying I'm the resurrection and I'm the life. So not only does he rule over death, but he also rules over life. And even the claim is pushed further than that, because he says, I am life. Like, I am resurrection. So this promise isn't just like, oh, these things I'm holding out to you, but really they're in me. This is me.
I think there's so much.
I thought it was interesting that he said, sorry, Levi. He said, trust is what we need when we don't have understanding.
How do we lean into that trust then?
I think that's where blind faith comes in. It is just those days, and I have those days too, where, okay, I believe that God is faithful. I believe all of these I am statements. I don't feel it. I don't see it. And I just have to just cling with everything I have onto that. I believe it. God, I'm going to believe it. I need you to show up in whatever. But today I'm choosing to believe it. And that trust has, because I don't understand. I don't understand why my daughter was ill. I don't understand all of these different things. But through it, then it is just that, but I'm going to trust that you're good. And I think God just gives that extra grace. And it, I mean, if you think back to, I mean, everybody had a copy of it in their house, that Footprints poem, where, Jesus says, that's where I carried you, because I don't get it. And actually, God, I just need you to carry me through it. But that's where that blind faith, I'm just going to believe it.
Did you ever have a time where you couldn't muster that up? Because, like, I think I've had times where, man, it's hard to muster that up in myself. So, like, what things are helpful to you when you?
I don't know. For me, I don't know that I've ever had a hard time to muster that up, because it's just such a deep part of me. I am one of those people who's been so blessed to grow up in a Christian family, strong Christian foundation, and a very, very practical faith. And sometimes I get frustrated because I'm not as emotional, or I'm not as maybe as excited about Jesus and the things that he's doing. But the faith that I have is so practical and just so deep that it's just part of me.
I think probably once a year, as I'm doing my messages for youth, I bring in this example. I've got this page in my Bible. Actually, it's like it's a bulletin from a church in Hong Kong that I was at one point. And I don't know, I don't know, zoned out during the message. And I just started writing down all the places that I saw God work in my life, or times where God was, I don't know, he just did crazy things. So I started writing down these things as a list of, in these seasons where I go through doubt or lack of faith, or I just don't feel God close to me, I can look back on those times and go, wow, God, you are so real here. You showed yourself in this big way here. And then I can look back and I don't know, it kind of spurs me on to stay faithful, like to have this faith. Yeah. Are there other tools that you guys, Glenda, Mark, have you guys used any tools in that way?
I think when I feel like my heart almost can't be engaged, I try to engage my mind. And so that's really helped me, just to because our tendencies, it's interesting because like our natural tendencies usually aren't our best things to do. So if we feel alone, we'll push people away, we need to lean in. Our instincts aren't always good about these things. So when I will try to engage my mind, because I just want to like push away if I can't muster up the feeling of it. And what has helped me is to engage my mind. Memorization of scripture has been foundational, I'd say, in that time. And then leaning in to really dig. Because I think what that allows for me to do is to be able to say with open hand, God, these are the days that I live in. This is what is happening right now. But this is who you are. So I think it just like lifts everything from like just looking at the things that I'm holding in my hand and staring at it, to lift my head and say, but this is who you are. And I don't know, somehow that just transfers to my heart.
That's really cool. I think for me too, some of that, I would say some of this digging is probably for me as well, but also like hearing that God is working in other people, like that
that's true,
actually, like,
yeah, definitely.
Hearing testimony this weekend, that testimony that Neil shared in our service was awesome. But sitting, I'll like, even the boys listening. One of my sons is reading this devotional on like science and God creating the world and how things work together and all that kind of stuff. And listening to him tell me about his devotion, there's something about listening to other people talk about who God is and what he means for them and how he's teaching them things. There's something about listening to that. There's something about having the knowledge that God is actually at work, even if I can't feel or experience or dig deep enough to know that he's working in my life, which I wouldn't ever say that he's not, but without being able to see it right now, to be able to know that he's active and at work in other people's lives, that's like that's an encouragement for me. And like, absolutely. Oh yeah, well, where are those places in my life? Yeah. And then I can start to see glimpses of them, right? I can start to see pieces of them.
For sure. And that's that need for sharing our stories, because it's sharing God's grace and it's praising and glorifying him, saying, look what he's done in my life, but then also encouraging those. And that's where that need for community, right? That we surround ourselves with other believers, whether that's, we can't do it physically right now, but to be in connection and to be able to share all of those amazing things that God has done to encourage, because you don't know what your story is going to do to encourage the person next to you.
And I loved this weekend too that we had stories like when Jeff talked about his daughter, that she had this great faith and prayed on her 7th birthday, and this is how God heard her and intervened. And then we also had a story of Neil, who God didn't rescue him from that situation, like a situation that we would look at and think, how, God, why would you leave a child in this situation?
Yeah.
And yet you see this redemption, and you see that God is not absent. And even those pieces, like they're just filled in by God. Like he doesn't leave any gaps. So
Mhm.
he teaches Neil how to be a father when he hasn't had that Neil hasn't repeated the same patterns. He takes away this act of forgiveness. So he gets pieces of God because of his childhood that I haven't gotten, because loving, great parents.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I don't know, I just like that we had different kinds of examples, because there is times, and Levi, you could probably talk to this, you've asked God for healing and that hasn't happened. And then, so there's times where we would just walk through things too, but
Yeah.
I like those examples.
You know, before I talk about healing, I just want to say, like, the story, the testimony from Neil this week has been, I don't know, really cool for me, because so my house was renovated by Neil. Neil
Right.
and Glenda, was your house, I think, was...
No, it wasn't. No.
No? Okay. Well, anyways, but my house was, renovated by him and his company. And it's cool because I spent a lot of yesterday after hearing his testimony, like as I just walked around kind of going, wow, God, you really resurrected him. Like
Yeah.
to bring him through that to a point where he's doing amazing work like he is right now, building houses. And I just was like, wow, I can't believe that God has the power to do that. I don't know. It's been amazing. So that's just a little side piece. Huge shout out to Neil. Thank you for sharing. Really encouraged me.
Absolutely.
But healing. There's so much power in resurrection, like that word. And sometimes I think we begin to ask God, how much power do you actually have? And I know for me, I've got Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed when I was in grade 6. And I spent a long time being very sick up to grade 8, which I ended up taking most of grade 8 off, having a surgery to basically take out 12 inches of my intestine, patch up my bladder, and I'm still not healed. But I've gone through a lot of times going to the church, having the elders pray and anoint me with oil, and having friends come around and say, I will pray for you every single night until you are healed, because I have faith that God's going to heal you. And yet I'm still here. And I hope those friends are still praying. But yeah, and I'm not healed. I still have Crohn's. Sometimes I go through, is it my lack of faith? Is it, you know what I mean? All these different thoughts. Or is God really this powerful? Can he resurrect me? Like, so yeah, I don't, there's been times in my life. Where have you guys asked God for healing? Where have you seen it happen? Where have you seen it not happen?
When a year ago, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had no symptoms of cancer, and I had uterine cancer. So it's a cancer that isn't readily diagnosed until it's a little further, and there's lots of complications why I would literally never have noticed this cancer until it was quite developed. But I kept getting these weird infections, and I never had anything like this before. And I kept, for like almost a year, I kept having these infections. And the day that they're like, I don't know, we'll try everything. So they've literally checked everything. They're like, I don't know, we'll send you to this guy and he'll just check everything else. I'm like, okay, great. So went for that checkup, and they're like, and you know, since that checkup, I never had another infection. It was like God just kept sending red flag and red flag and red to say, you have to check everything. You have to check everything. Yeah. And I think there is that isn't just God being like, that's just God being active in my life. That is him like sending what I thought were bad things that I was asking God to get rid of, to really show me something bigger. And so when I was listening to this story of Lazarus too, I was thinking what God comes with, what he responds with, is 3 things: a powerful truth about himself, like saying, you are never, you're never away from me. I always have a hold of you. He came with strong emotion. He wept, like there was emotion, and he came with this action this action that was powering, saying that I have this claim over death and life. And so I think that reminded me of like that season of life where he just kept like really he inserted his hand of this incredible action on me.
Yeah.
It's humbling.
So cool. I would say that if I look back, there's like a few places. Probably the sad thing about it is I could probably look back and see places where I thought, you know, we prayed for healing and it didn't happen. And that's not to say that God didn't use those times, or I think that there's also times when I don't understand always the power of God and the healing of God in all of situations. But I think even in my own life, I would say like last year I went on that medical leave for a few months, and even just to see him come through that, come through a time when probably my like mental health and emotional health wasn't really strong, which I didn't really understand because that wasn't normal for me. To see him like fill me up, be able to rest, be able to see him, be able to experience him, be able to be connected to him, which sort of set a pretty significant pattern for my life, even in the last year in terms of connection to him and that. But so that's one example. But I think even too, like watching Solomon broke his leg a couple of years ago, and it was like significant. I still look at the X-rays and remember the looks on the doctors' faces when they saw the X-rays, to know that like God spared his life. Like dude broke his femur, could have bled out on the hill while we were skiing. And when I think back of how rough people were with him, and nothing happened, no arteries, no nothing. The first surgery didn't go great. Nothing happened. We brought him back in. The surgeon took care of him. We did the second, and now dude plays football and soccer and runs and all the things. And he has this, you know, now he runs around in shorts all the time. So this scar is like a real reminder that God heals. Like he takes care of it. This was significant, and we prayed, and lots of people prayed right away. And dude's a machine now. He's
Amazing.
good. So you know, physical, and that's a physical example, but I would say like the emotional, mental, spiritual piece that happened for me last year. Those are two significant places that I've seen him in the last year show up that way.
Thanks be to God, Mark, for Solomon's life, and also for restoring you.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I think when I look back, I can look at pieces like I referenced my divorce, where I say, okay, God, you didn't heal that. It didn't get fixed. But then I look, and even now we're walking cancer with my mom, which a month and a half ago, they told us she had cancer. It was going to be super operable, no big deal. And now they're doing kind of chemo to give her a few months. I think, God, what happened here? But we're asking for a miracle, and we're trusting, and we're waiting. But I think really, to me, the big example was when my daughter was sick a few years ago. Man, when Katie battled that eating disorder, it's about 5 years ago that she was in the ICU, and the doctor said, we don't know. And she just started a nursing job the other day. She is healthy. She is caring for people. She's working in a hospital, caring for people. And I just think, God, not only did you preserve it, you brought her through it all, brought her out with a heart to help people. One of her dreams is to work in the eating disorder clinic and to care for patients who have that same battle as her. And that one's, I mean, it's physical, but it's also a mental journey. So you would continue to pray that stays away. But man, she is just literally a walking miracle, and just such a reminder, kind of like Solomon's scars. When I just hear Katie, I like, wow, Lord, we didn't know, and you showed up in such a big way. And again, so many people praying, and to be able to have her now walking around as a testimony to God's goodness, and to how, yes, the resurrection and the life. That little girl she was pretty ill, and to see her thriving now as a witness is amazing.
In his way, and to bring him glory, which is why Lazarus was raised, right? Like
Exactly.
this was the best way to display his glory.
Yeah.
And the telling of her in this
And
new
that's,
life.
I think, that's the piece that as you're walking through it and you're in the middle of it, okay, what is the best way to tell God's story? And if this is the best way, and if the best way isn't the way we're going to pick, then okay, but God, how are we telling your story?
See, this is why testimony is so important.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
important. It brings glory to God when his name is proclaimed over people. And, and it also, for people like me who haven't necessarily experienced healing, it's a reminder. It builds us up in our faith, and it's a reminder that God heals. He is all powerful. He has the power to heal. We should pray without ceasing. And yeah, I'm so encouraged by that. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm not healed, but like, I'm so encouraged by your stories. And this past year, even for Glenda to have been cancer, that was huge for me. And then I have another close friend that also beat cancer this year. And so that is also so huge for me. And to see this healing and how God has worked in these amazing ways, it builds me up. It's so great to hear. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your guys' thoughts on this. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could have talked about with this topic, but it's time to move to On the Lighter Side.
On the lighter side.
Okay, for today's On the Lighter Side, we have a special guest with us. It's Monica, the amazing Monica.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
And we were like, we want to get to know Monica a little bit better. So I thought, why not ask her some of the fun morning questions that we asked our team over the last, I don't know, month and a half, and see what Monica says.
That's a
get to
good
know her a
idea.
little bit. Yeah.
Because
Better
I've
to
been
hear her.
Well, I've been busy judging all of your answers. So
Yeah.
Now we
Oh,
get
yeah.
to judge yours. Go for it.
Now
Yeah,
we'll be judging on
exactly.
you.
Yeah, all the people who are listening, watch out. We might get you on the
Right.
podcast to answer.
Exactly.
And then we can judge. No.
Shotgun these. Let's go.
Right.
Okay, so one of
Okay.
our first questions was, what is one fashion trend or article of clothing that you look back on and shake your head at?
Well, there was those, I think they were like parachute pants. It was the era of MC Hammer. I had a matching jacket with it matched the pants. That one was pretty bad.
Or
Do you
parachute
still
pants,
have the
drop
pants?
crotch?
I don't.
Yes,
No,
they're drop.
Maybe they were.
Yes,
But
they're
we're
the
not,
same
going to
thing.
go there. We're not going back to
You and
the
Levi
drop-
got matching
I just
pants.
literally want to
Yeah.
say that right now, I'm wearing drop crotch pants.
Yeah.
No.
As we film it,
I-
I put them on for today's
Of course you
episode.
did.
I
Of course
literally
you
want to
did.
say I'm not one bit surprised.
Right.
That's
Okay,
it.
but if we can talk about something they should bring back, my favorite article quote that this fashion trend is gone was the era of slouch socks.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
being a freakishly tall child, my
Oh.
pants were never long enough, but nobody knew because I could pull those socks up over the fact that my pants were too short. Best
Wow.
move ever.
Ankles, they go like you can just doesn't matter. You can rock them. Slouch
I
socks.
know. But
But they
back
fall
then,
off your feet.
yeah, I know. But
Bad.
my
Bad
pants
socks.
look long enough.
It's true. Good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you could have one famous person to join you during isolation right now, who would it be and why?
You see, this was one I was chuckling at all your answers a lot, and nobody picked that Marie Kondo or whatever her name is to come
Oh,
clean out
yeah.
your house with all the stuff. I'm
What?
like, guys, how have you not
Yes,
picked
we
her?
missed. We
Come,
missed the
get rid of all the
opportunity.
stuff.
You need her
She
translator.
still asks you, "Do you love this?" It's still hard. You still have to
Okay.
decide.
You see, but as long as she
I
asks
think-
me and not my husband, because he loves all the things and all the
Yeah.
things bring him joy, and bringing me joy would be getting rid of all of the things.
Let's just go back. I think Luke's not here to defend himself, but didn't he pick
He
like
picked Paul Brandt.
Yeah,
Paul
I wonder
Brandt.
if he'd
He
still
picked
be
Paul
happy with
Brandt.
Paul Brandt.
And Brad Paisley.
I wonder if he'd still be happy with country music
Yeah.
playing full time.
I think
It is
he
us.
would be getting pretty sick of country music.
I don't even remember what my
That's-
answer was. but I
Paul's
do
still
remember.
playing. Paul's
Right?
still playing. You
I
picked a
think-
chef or something.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. I think I picked the
So-
chef. I think we'd still be happy with the chef.
Yeah.
Still gotta
I would
eat.
be happy with a chef right about now.
Oh,
See?
seriously.
Joanna
Wouldn't even have to be a
Gaines.
I
chef.
know.
A line cook would be good in my house.
Joanna Gaines, she's
Something
perfect.
for her.
You can be a burger flipper. You're fine.
Basically.
Yeah, you're good.
I'll make supper.
Can you deep fry things? Come on over.
Right?
Our boys want a
Exactly.
deep fryer now.
We need an air fryer, no deep fryer. You need
No,
air
don't,
fryer.
no, yeah, don't want to die.
Exactly.
Is the air fryer worth it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I even
Can
made
you-
my mom buy one and she loves it.
Can you fry chicken in it?
Yes.
We have something similar to an air fryer. It's awesome. We use it all the time. But the
It's
boys,
amazing.
so on these cooking shows, they freaking deep fry everything. So these
Yeah.
our boys are like, we need a deep fryer. And in fact, when we're like making supper, they're like, hey, we could have deep fried that, and it's everything. Like because they deep
Yeah.
fry everything for a little
We
while.
had happy deep fry night once. We just deep fried anything we could find.
I
Put it
bet
out
you
on
in
the
your-
deck, deep fried crap.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Always
Yeah.
put it on the deck.
Yeah.
Oh
Always.
man. Oh, last time I deep fried that chicken, all my clothes.
Oh, yeah.
You
Nasty.
did it inside.
No, I did it on the deck,
No,
but
he
my
did it
I thought you
clothes.
said you
Still
did
the
it.
clothes,
Okay, sorry. I
brutal.
thought you said you
Like
did
I
it
can't
inside.
imagine if that was in my house.
Listen, our good old
Yeah.
Dutch friends do this every Christmas.
Oh, you bet. There's nothing
Mhm.
like it, man.
Oli
Good,
Bolin or
some deep
Yeah.
fried oli
German
bowl.
friends,
Oh,
Dutch
man.
friends. I don't know.
It's the Dutch.
Germans too. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Which
Hmm.
person in the Bible do you most resemble and why?
Oh, you see, and I thought about this one too. I feel it might be a little bit Peter in the Big Mouth and just
He had a lot
saying
of
things.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always Peter, People are always
Right.
Yeah.
You feel he's kind of relatable. Are
He's
you gonna like?
very
What are you gonna be
relatable.
like? I'm Moses. Like, what are you gonna say?
Jesus.
I feel like
more
I'm
Jesus.
Moses. Yeah. Okay, most embarrassing injury.
Oh my word. So this fall, I was teaching over at, and Glenda's laughing because she's heard this story. I was teaching at CCH. They got me in to do a session in grade 10 religion class. It was awesome, and I killed it. Like, I killed this class. These grade 10s are engaged, and they're talking. So I am literally strutting out of the front of that school, and I am just like, I'm amazing. I just killed this class.
Type
And I'm
3 is all
Oh
happy.
my word, all the things. And it was kind of winter, and so there was snow. And as I was getting to the door, my boot hit a puddle of water, and I boom, and I biffed it. There's kids everywhere, and there's staff running
Nice.
to me, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. Yeah. So I had cut my finger, my pants had a hole in it, all of it. Like the bruise on my nail just grew out, and this was in October. But I just get up, I'm like, no, I'm fine. I limped to my car, and I'm
You didn't walk. You
bleeding.
didn't walk for days.
It was brutal. It was
Oh, wow.
awful. All
But
because
really, what
I
really
was,
hurt? Your pride or your
Oh.
body?
It was for sure my pride.
I was
My body hurt a
hoping
lot too.
I was hoping it was gonna be one of those stories where you the class was still in session and then
They're
you're
looking out the
walking out,
window.
no one was there, and then all of a sudden you
Yeah.
look back and all their faces are looking out the window.
Oh no,
So-
no, it was
400
break
kids,
between
I guess.
classes. All the kids were there. They all were.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
man,
awesome. Oh man.
Yeah,
man, that is crazy.
it was a winner.
Well, thank you so much for joining our show today. We loved having you.
For sure, it was great to be
yeah.
here. It was fun.
Thanks, Monica.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back.
I would like that.
Yeah, I mean, Luke probably is going to be on holidays again sometime.
Okay, well, I'm here.
Right.
Us, we
Or
get holidays.
I'll
too.
go. I'll volunteer.
Well, I think that's everything that we have for you guys today. So signing off, I'm Levi. Nice to see you guys.
Bye, everyone.
See you, everybody.
Have a good week.